Continuing the Maimer, וספרתם lochem, the Rebbe said on like Bo'emer, in the year Tov Yud Aleph, explaining the concept of Sfiras Omer. So last time we learned that there's generally two concepts in the birur and the refinement of the Nefesh Habam is the animal soul. There is refining and elevating the intellect of the animal soul, that's the source of the emotions. And for that, all one has to do is lift it up. The source and the root of the negative emotional faculties of the animal soul, in order to bring them to a place where they will, rather than cause the negative emotional attributes, instead they should be involved with the positive. For that, we have to lift them up. Lift up the intellect. That's one action. It's deep in the wrong place, lift it up in the right place. But Sfiras Omer is the counting of the Omer. That's once we lifted it up, then we have to deal slowly, step by step, with every single aspect of the attributes, of the emotional attributes of the animal soul, in order to refine them and to transform them, to prepare it for the third level of Avyani Amerel Chadara for Matan Torah. And that's why the mitzvah of counting the days, according to Rabbeinu Yerucham, is even Bizman Hazeh, even in our time when there's no Beis HaMikdash. It's also a Torah commandment, whereas the mitzvah of counting the weeks, according to Rabbeinu Yerucham, nowadays is not. And the reason is because the power to refine and elevate and transform the Nefesh Habam is specifically, every aspect of it, that's something which is a necessity, it's a need, and that the Torah gives us the power for doing that even now in our time. Whereas the power to be able to transform the general midah, which that's the weak, taking the midah, the attribute in a general sense and transforming it, that's something which is already a higher level, that the Torah doesn't give us the power for it in our time. Bizman Hazeh, when there's no Beis HaMikdash, the rabbis, the Rabbanan, who their mission is to elevate a person to a higher level, they give us the power to do that as well. Now let's look, the Rebbe explains now at the manner, at explaining what it means actually in a practical level to transform each level and each faculty and each attribute of the animalistic soul. So the Rebbe said, let's look at the Sfira of Chesed, because we have 7 Sfiras. Each one represents a different emotion that a person can either use for the positive, for holiness, to connect him through those midos, the measured state of the soul, which are spheres, they shine, they're channels of light and energy that can connect us to something. That energy can connect me to godliness, or, God forbid, the opposite. However, each one of the midas is included of all 7. So the Rebbe says, let's take, for example, the first of the midas, which is the midah of chesed. Let's see what it is. Let's contemplate what is the meaning, the practical meaning of chesed, and how practically chesed expresses itself in 7 ways. And it's the same thing with each one of the midas, and it's the same idea. Now, one of the ideas that we bring an example from chesed, we know that chesed ozil in kulu yoimin. Chesed is something which by nature has to go together with all the other days, with all the other midas. So when we start with understanding chesed, it enables us to better understand how this works with all the midas. So let's look at chesed. Chesed, the sphere of chesed, the godly sphere of chesed is hamshacha. drying down, giving, an abundant giving. The chesed, the way it expresses itself in a person's soul, there's the practical chesed, which is to give, but the emotional root of chesed is to love. The abundant pulling, being pulled towards something. Hamshacha, the being pulled towards something. Chesed, in the spheres, in the side of Kedusha, the chesed, the way it is in the nefesh of the kiss, in the godly soul, means the pull and the love and pull towards Elokus, towards godliness. That's the general idea of chesed. Chesed means that a person feels, as a result of using his mind to contemplate and to understand and grasp the greatness of Hashem, person comes to feel a love and a pull towards Hashem, towards godliness, towards godly things and spiritual things. That's chesed. That's the general idea of chesed. But how and in which way, in order to get chesed, in order that chesed should actually come and be fixed and be expressed in the proper way, we have to use and we have to deal with it in each one of the aspects, in each one of the ways that it's expressed. So we start with chesed shebechesed. Chesed shebechesed means chesed because of chesed. Meaning, I love because I love. Which practically means, what causes me to love Hashem? What causes me to have a pull towards godliness? The chesed, the fact that I love. That my love for Hashem expresses itself in loving everything that Hashem wants, and in loving those people that do what Hashem wants, and in loving spiritual ideas of Torah and mitzvahs and all those who are involved with Torah and mitzvahs. Gvura shebechesed means that how does my chesed, my love for Hashem, express itself? Because that's the way, just in general, I love doesn't yet mean anything. But if I love brings me to something, there's the famous Hayoim Yoim, where they ask the Alter Rebbe, what's greater, love for Hashem or love for one's fellow Jew? And the Alter Rebbe said, love for one's fellow Jew. Why? Because Hashem says, I love the Jewish people. Ahavti eschem amar Hashem, Hashem loves Jews. When is love real? Just to say I love you doesn't mean anything. But if that love expresses itself with the fact that I love those whom He loves, that's a much deeper and a much stronger love. That's a much more real meaning of love. So chesed shebechesed means, how does the love for Hashem express itself? It's not just love, but it's expressing itself in loving all those who do what Hashem wants, in loving those who are connected to Hashem, in loving and being pulled to all spiritual things of Torah and mitzvahs. Gvura shebechesed is that the expression of chesed expresses itself in said. In Gvura is pulling away, which could be fear or it could be hate. The concept of going away from, moving away from, distancing myself. So the love for Hashem in here, Gvura shebechesed, expresses itself in the fact that I distance myself from all things that are against Hashem, from the things that Hashem doesn't want. My love for Hashem expresses itself in the fact, because I love Hashem, I distance myself from all things that Hashem doesn't want, all things that are against Hashem. That's another way of expressing a love. I love someone, I can express the love by doing what they want, by loving what they love, or I can express the love by staying away from what they don't want me to do. Tiferes shebechesed is the next level, which Tiferes means the beauty. And Tiferes is not just beauty, but it's a feeling of beauty. A feeling of excitement, a feeling of pride. Tiferes shebechesed means, because I love Hashem, I'm proud and excited when I see someone that learns Torah and does mitzvahs, someone that does what Hashem wants. It causes me to feel a feeling of pride and excitement. So not just that I love and I'm pulled towards someone that does what Hashem wants, but even more than that, I actually feel excited and pride from when I see someone learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. Those, in general, is the main midas. In other words, the main branches of the emotional attributes are the first three: Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes. Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes are emotional feelings. They're generally the main emotional feelings. They're called the pnimius, the inner midas, the inner emotional attributes. And that's Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. My love for Hashem expresses itself in being loved and pulled towards spiritual things. It expresses itself in staying away from things that are against Hashem, and it expresses itself in seeing someone learning Torah excitedly and getting excited. Wow, look how amazing the Torah is, what the Torah is able to bring about. The next three, Netzach, Chod, and Yisoid, are called the Chitzonius HaMidas, the outer midas, because they are no longer just emotions. They're branches of these emotions. But they're branches of the emotions that are already leading towards the next level, which is action, speech, or action, but towards the next level, it's already dealing with something more practical. Netzach and Hod are called in Kabbalah the Kloyos Yoyatsos, the two kidneys that give advice. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes is in the heart, it's feelings of the heart. Netzach and Hod is already deciding and using the emotions in order to decide and to come to the understanding of how to do it. So Netzach and Hod is when I have a hard time doing it. So Netzach is that even when I have things that hold me back, I have things that seems to stand in the way from doing what I'm supposed to do in order to serve Hashem, I fight with it. Netzach, I'm victorious. I overpower. That means it's in a way of drawing out, in a way of chesed, of hamshacha. Fighting and overpowering those things which are holding me back. Hod is the same type of idea, but in the opposite way, which means when there is a very strong opposition, there's a strong opposition from the outside, and the person feels, I can't do it, and you have no strength to do it. So the strength and the power that comes from love, from drawing of victory, I don't feel it anymore. But here I have to actually be mevatel myself. Hod is to subjugate myself, to subdue my own self in order to actually be able to overpower it. So it's not just netzach in a way of the branch of chesed, this is Hod in the branch of Gvura, but the concept is the same, but even more strong and powerful, that I overcome anything that holds me back and that tries to stand in my way from doing what Hashem wants, from doing Torah and mitzvahs. Then there's Yisoid Shebechesed. Yisoid means connection, meaning that even if I don't feel it, I don't feel like I want to do it, my feelings are not there, but yet I have this inherent love for Hashem, and this love for Hashem, the Chesed, causes me to arouse and to connect myself to it even when I don't feel it. Because Yisoid means connection, bringing out the love and the connection. Because I love Hashem, in other words, Yisoid Shebe Chesed, because I love Hashem, that's why I want to connect to Torah and mitzvahs even when I don't feel like it. And from all those Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and especially Netzach, Hod, Yisoid, they come down into Malchus, which is practical action, that practically, as a result of all of the above, because I love Hashem, Malchus, I actually go and actually do Torah and mitzvahs in practical world, in thought, speech, and action, actually being involved with Torah and mitzvahs. That's in Chesed, and it's the same thing with every one of the midas. It will be the same thing in Gvura, that because of my fear and awe that I feel from Hashem, I go through all of these midas. It expresses itself in these ways. Tiferes, because of my feeling of pride in my connection to Hashem, This brings me to all of these different midas, and expressing all these midas, etc., etc. And Mr. Hashem, next time we'll go into the opposite of what we have to change from the negative aspects.